This past Saturday, before Carolina's season-opening football game, the men's basketball team held a first-of-its-kind, player-only, NIL-supported and promoted blue and white scrimmage. Fans were able to come and see what the Tar Heels are going to be this year, and let me tell you, the results are good.
You are Locked On Tar Heels, your daily podcast on the UNC Tar Heels, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every.
Hey there, it's Tuesday, August 30th, 2022. Welcome into the Locked On Tar Heels podcast, the only daily North Carolina show out there. I'm your host, Isaac Shade, and I want to thank you for making Locked On Tar Heels your first listen or your first watch every single day. Please don't forget the show is free and available anywhere you get podcasts, so it's really easy. Subscribe right now, doesn't cost you a thing, and it'll make sure that you get your team every day. For those of you watching, if you would, please smash the like button and would love to hear your thoughts on this scrimmage in the comments as we go along. So here's what we want to do. I'm going to treat this very similarly to what I do any other Carolina basketball or football game. I'm going to start by giving you some big picture takeaways, and then we're going to move into, at least for basketball, what I do is my four corners preview before games and four corners review after games. Plus, I always do a shady stat of the game, and I'll make sure to give that to you as well, where I share one stat that really stuck out to me. And you know, because my last name is Shade, I got to wear my aviators while we're doing it. By the way, beginning of football season, lots of new listeners checking in. We are so glad that you're here. Welcome to this community. Thanks for diving in. Hope you enjoy it. Okay, so big picture takeaways from this scrimmage. If you checked in, B-Dot and I, Carolina's in-game arena host, the sixth man of the Tar Heels, we did a live YouTube the other day. We had some issues with his audio, and so it was hard to engage with that. And so what I want to do today is just give you stuff straight from me, just me talking to you where you can hear it and get it clearly. To those of you who tuned into that, thank you, and I apologize for the issues we had. The first and biggest thing I want to say is this was a huge win. This needs to happen always. Every year, make this a thing. For $10, you get to go into the Smith Center and see Carolina basketball. This is the earliest the public had ever gotten to view like a live team scrimmage in this kind of way. The earliest public appearance in program history. I love the cohesion with the football game. Let's do this every fall. In the hours leading up to the first home football game, unless it's like a noon kick, because that would be ridiculous. In that case, you just flip-flop it and do it afterwards. But every year, in conjunction with the first home football game, do a Carolina basketball scrimmage that is NIL supported, promoted. The players get paid from this. Coaches, unfortunately, can't be part of it, just with NCAA rules and regulations about what they can and can't do. All of that plays into it. But this, again, is a no-brainer. It bridges the gap to October when we get late night and the start of practices and things like that. It's still 2 months away. This is awesome. Let's always do it. So here's how things went. This was a game to 80. ACC refs are refereeing the game. Basically, once one team gets to 40, it's halftime, and then first team to 80 wins. There were two teams, a blue and a white team. The white team won 80-69 behind an Armando Bacot offensive rebound tip-in. Surprise, surprise there. That was the winning bucket. On one team, on the white team, the team that won is RJ Davis, Armando Bacot, Demarco Dunn, Puff Johnson, Justin McKoy, Duwe Farris, and Creighton Lebo. On the blue team is Caleb Love, Seth Trimble, Paige Nance, Tyler Nickel, Dontrez Styles, Wilcher, and Jackson Watkins. Those were your lineups. The teams, this is cool since the coaches couldn't do it. It's all former players. The blue team was coached by Jawad Williams and Ed Davis. The white team coached by Marcus Ginyard and Dion Thompson. Love that. Now, the biggest question I've been getting, everybody's wondering this. There are two scholarship guys that didn't play, and that's Jalen Washington and Leaky Black. Now, if you've been tracking with Carolina basketball, you know Jalen Washington had some very serious lower body injuries in high school and is still working his way back, isn't fully back in the flow of a game yet. And so it would be not irrational. It would be silly. It would be a bad decision to have him out there playing. No need to work him in too quickly. This is wise. Take your time. Now, what about Leaky? I was told by BDOT, and BDOT said this in our conversation we had Sunday on our live YouTube, that really with Leaky, it's just load management. There's nothing going on, nothing big, nothing you need to be worried about is the biggest thing. It's just the dude's a fifth-year senior. He's played a lot of games. Would you rather see him in the scrimmage, or would you rather see him for 35 to 40 games, however many Carolina gets to play during the regular and postseason? Yeah, let's wait. And so this is just precautionary. Nothing wrong. Don't worry about Leaky. That is the news there. Load management. No point in trying to roll out either player. Be wise with that. A couple other big picture goodness gracious, I can't say takeaways. A couple other big picture takeaways I want to share with you. One of the biggest things is you look at Paige Nance's line from this scrimmage. 11 points, solid, 5 of 12 shooting, just below 50%, really solid. Part of those 7 misses was he was 0 for 4 from 3. And so I think people see that and get a little like, ee. We'll talk about that in a second. But 8 rebounds, 2 blocks, and a steal. And so I think the biggest thing people see is that 0 for 4 on 3-point shooting, and kind of like, he's supposed to be Brady Manek 2.0. What's going on there? Brady Manek had 2 or 3 games all of last season where he didn't make a 3. Okay, calm down. It's going to be okay. Paige Nance is not Brady Manek. Hubert Davis has said as much. There was no Brady Manek out there in the transfer portal this year. Now, Paige Nance is a very, very good basketball player, very high IQ, very non-prima donna, going to slide right in just like Brady Manek did and be part of this team in big ways. But please hear me say this, and I'm going to be saying this over and over and over again in the lead up to the season. Let Paige Nance be Paige Nance. He doesn't need to be Brady Manek. He doesn't need to be his NBA brother or father. He needs to be Pete. And we need, as a fan base, to let him do that. The coaches are going to do that. They're not going to try to make him be Brady Manek. They're going to try to make him be Paige Nance. So he's going to have better shooting days. Don't worry about that. He's going to get his. Coach Davis is going to figure out how to do this with him. But you take out those threes, don't look at that, 11 points, 8 rebounds, and you combine that with what Armando Bacot's going to be doing, man, I'll take that night in and night out. Because in addition to the actual statistical numbers, here's the biggest thing that I'm seeing from him. BDOT talked about this, is leadership. Paige Nance is just bringing a high level of leadership to this team, along with what you've already got from the other upperclassmen and returners. And not in a way of like, I'm coming in and I'm going to be the guy, but in a really healthy way of how can I come in, be part of what's already going on, but help just share some of what I've seen from growing up in a household with an NBA dad, of knowing how to do it right. Just a lot of wise things. Peace going to be good. Caleb Love in this game was Caleb Love. Had second leading scorer, 22 points, 8 for 20 from the field. Again, similar to Pete, just below 50%, 4 of 10 from 3, 4 rebounds, 2 assists. You like that. Now, Caleb, our hope is that he continues to grow in that decision-making. That's always the thing that you're going to do. But, I mean, he's out there, hit a 3. Go back and look at the highlights. You can find them on YouTube. Hit a 3 from the W in Roy Williams' signature on the court. That's Caleb Love doing Caleb Love. Another big picture takeaway for me was this. Any guesses on who the third leading scorer in this scrimmage was? We've already said that Caleb was second. RJ was first. Number 3, Seth Trimble, freshman guard. Yeah, that's right. Top 3 scorers are all guards. Seth had 21 points, 7 of 12, very efficient from the floor, 2 of 5 from 3, 5 of 5 from the free throw line. More high-level free throw shooters to a team that's already shooting a very high percentage. 3 assists, 3 rebounds, 2 blocks. Come on, Seth Trimble. Bring me all of that. This is going to be such a good addition to this team. Another thing to be looking out for, Tyler Nickel had 11 points in this game. We've heard and seen a little bit that his defense is going to be lacking as a freshman. Get that. He's going to grow in that. What I'm encouraged by is Tyler Nickel there are going to be games this season where he is going to be a microwave offensive juggernaut off the bench at times. So just be on the lookout for that. Also, one last thing for this first segment. Often we think about like a team like Baylor. One of the things they did so well the year they won the national championship 2 seasons ago was just their guard play was phenomenal. This season, they look to have probably the strongest 3-guard lineup in the nation. I really think they will have that. But I'm really curious to see, with all the various lineup combinations Coach Davis can throw out this year, do we get some moments of a 3-guard lineup with RJ, Caleb, and Seth Trimble all together on the floor? Whew. I want to see that. I bet you want to see that. Come on, Coach Davis, bring it to the people. Let us have a little bit of that. So, coming up next, my 4-corner ode to Coach Smith, my 4-corner review, and my shady stat of the game right after I tell you about BetOnline. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to check in on all your betting needs. Find your favorite sports and events at the #1 online source for odds, lines, and games. There's also reviews and news of every league, including Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, esports, and even golf. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all your sports wagering info. From live in-game betting to scores and podcasts, they have you covered. So head to BetOnline today or use your mobile device to learn more about all the trends in action. BetOnline, where the game starts. Okay, here we go. My 4 corners review. Number 1. Y'all, this is going to be RJ Davis's team. Yeah, you got Caleb Love, big, bold guy. Has a lot of moxie, does all this stuff. RJ. Armando Bacot. He's going to be the one that's the preseason All-American. He's the one that's going to be the preseason ACC Player of the Year. He's the one with all the NIL everything. This is RJ Davis's team. You watch. Now, it's a lot of RJ and Mondo, truthfully, but there's just something about a North Carolina point guard, and obviously there's going to be a lot of interplay between Caleb Love and RJ Davis with that, and Seth Trimble coming in to back them up. But what RJ was doing out there, and like in regard to what was already expected, and the way he's stepping in and leading things, this dude is the leading scorer. 9 of 18 from the field, 3 of 8 from 3, 3 of 4 from the free throw line, 2 assists, 5 rebounds, 2 steals, and a block. I mean, RJ is just getting it. His ball handling is continuing to go, all this stuff. This is RJ Davis's team. He's the engine that makes it all go. He's going to have the ball in his hands more than anyone else. And it's that classic North Carolina junior point guard thing. Think about all these juniors and everything that they have done as starting guards. Just be ready. It's going to be RJ Davis. In a battle between the most indispensable player on the team, it's either him or Mondo. I'm going with RJ because I just don't think anyone can get Carolina into their offense the same way that RJ is going to be able to this year. Caleb would be very close, but just not at the level that RJ will. And then that's what it is. This is RJ's team. All right. Number 2 in my 4 corners review. Let's stick with Armando Bacot. The dude rolls out of bed and picks up a double-double. In a scrimmage, he's getting 19 points and 20 rebounds in this scrimmage. That is absolutely absurd to me. Now, he's not going up against a Drew Timme or an Oscar Tshiebwe or Trace Jackson Davis or somebody of that caliber. Pete Nance just isn't that level of rebounder like those guys, but he's no slub. Schlub, whatever. He's out there doing work as well. And Armando, 20 rebounds. Like, there is a very, very legitimate chance that he will. Remember last season, he tied David Robinson's NCAA record for double-doubles? The question isn't if he can do it based on his ability. It's based on, can he break that record just based on how many games North Carolina plays. It's going to be insane what Armando is going to bring this year. I mean, he had a 3-pointer on Saturday. Really interested to see senior Armando Bacot, and I just think it's going to be ridiculous. Get ready, America. Armando Bacot is coming for you. Number 3, the biggest surprise to me on Saturday? Demarco Dunn, 16 points, along with 4 rebounds. Now, here's what's even perhaps more interesting about that. When you think about Demarco Dunn, it's like, oh, yeah, when he does start scoring, it's going to be from beyond the arc. Out of those 16 points, three of them were on a three-pointer. The other 13, 1 free throw, and then 12 points just off of buckets. He's shown me some things this offseason, like Carolina last week put out that like kind of highlight video of some practice stuff going on. He had this outlet pass up and went up for this dunk that I was like, what? DeMarco, did not know that was in your bag, bro. And then he had another nice dunk on Saturday. I'm not saying he's going to step in and play extremely meaningful minutes. He will play some meaningful minutes, but I think the problem is going to be that he's going to be stuck behind RJ Davis, Caleb Love, and Seth Trimble. I think Seth Trimble is going to have that third guard spot following RJ Caleb, and then DeMarco will be behind him. But if he's able to score at that level, look calm and poised and more comfortable than he did last year, he's going to force Coach Davis to play him. And if you have 2 legitimate backcourt backups in Seth Trimble and Demarco Dunn, what that enables Coach Davis to do in getting Caleb and RJ off their feet and on the bench longer. Now, I'm not saying they're going to eat into their time where they're playing 20 to 25 minutes a game is all for RJ and Caleb. They're still going to play, hopefully, somewhere around 30 minutes a game. But if they can get a legitimate breather from either Seth and or DeMarco, then that's just going to make the time that they're in all the more efficient and going to make them better basketball players and going to make this a better team. All if DeMarco Dunn is able to show more of what he did on Saturday. Would love to see it. Come on, DeMarco, bring that noise. My 4th point in the Four Corners review is this. Watch Puff Johnson this year. Just keep your eyes out on him. Same thing I said about Paige Nance. Puff is not Cam. I've said this before, and I'll continue saying it. We're not going to just be expecting him to light it up beyond 3. Remember, Cam had like an insane last year at North Carolina that just shot him up unexpectedly up the draft boards. The types of things he's doing is not what Puff is going to be doing. Puff's going to hit some threes, absolutely, but he's going to help this team in a multitude of other ways, filling out stat sheets, filling out things that you don't see in the box score, things that the coaches are noticing and appreciating. You've heard Coach Davis talk about how much he appreciates and trusts what Puff does on the court. Hopefully we have a finally fully healthy Puff Johnson for the first time in his 3 seasons. And I firmly believe, keep in mind, if Paige Nance doesn't transfer in, Puff Johnson is your starter at the 4, in my opinion, this year. I think he is going to be, I said it with B-Dot, I think he is your X factor for this team. If Puff Johnson is able to play at a starter's level capacity, watch out, folks. Keep your eye on Puff Johnson this year and everything he's able to do, and let him affect the game in ways that he can. All right, here you go. My shady stat of the game. Boom, we're doing it. 149 total points scored in this scrimmage. 80 for one team, 69 for the losing team. That's a total of 149. A full 83 of those points were scored by the 4 guards: RJ Davis, Caleb Love, Seth Trimble, and Demarco Dunn. 24 for Davis, 22 for Love, 21 for Trimble, and 16 for Dunn. That's 55.7% of your scoring from those 4 guys. Even take Dunn out, because again, I don't think he'll play as high-level minutes as the other 3 guys. You've still got them scoring 67 of your points, just shy of half from Davis, Love, and Trimble. If you're getting that level of production from your guards, man, this is going to be a phenomenal year. Think about how important guard play is in the NCAA tournament. If you can trust the ball with any of those 3 guys, not to mention that Leaky can do it when he needs to, etc., going to be in a good position. Guards, the 4 main backcourt guards, scored 83 of the 149 points. Love that. Love to see it. All right. CBS Sports, something they do every year. The college basketball crew, specifically Gary Parrish and Matt Norlander, do a Candid Coaches series where they ask 100 coaches some questions about the upcoming basketball season and then post the results. I'm going to tell you more about that in just a second. Okay, so the first of the Candid Coaches series, they ask a whole multitude of questions and then they just roll them out a few at a time. So on Monday, yesterday, CBS Sports rolled out the first of these questions, and basically it was, which college basketball team will be the best in the country in 22-23? Which team is going to be the favorite to win the national championship, or do you think will win the national championship? And so what I want to look at is, did these coaches get it right? And then we're going to need to talk about it. So let me give you the full premise from CBS. And it says this: CBS Sports college basketball writers Gary Parrish and Matt Norlander surveyed roughly 100 coaches for our annual Candid Coaches series. They polled everyone from head coaches at elite programs to assistants at some of the smallest Division I schools. In exchange for complete anonymity, the coaches provided unfiltered honesty about a number of topics. Okay, there you go. So today's, again, is who is the most likely to win the 23 NCAA tournament? Before I talk about the actual results, here's just a couple things that you notice when you look at it. No school that was named got up to 40%. There was no real consensus on one team, as there sometimes is. Although there is one school that received nearly 40%, in the high 30s, and that was the only team in the 30s. Everyone else was in the 20s or lower. 12 different schools received a vote. You should pause the podcast or pause YouTube or whatever. Guess who those are. If you're watching on YouTube, leave it in the comments. Would love to see if you can figure out who those 12 teams are. Now, as I take you through the percentages, the number of votes, you're going to see there is a clear top three that people feel like, and then a big demarcation line drop off to the final 9 on this list. I think there's one of these schools that the coaches got wrong, and one that should be up in that top 3 that was in the lower 9. And so one of these is going to, I think, surprise you. So let's look. Remember, this is all coaches, head coaches, assistant coaches, all across D1 voting on this. 100 votes, 100 total percent. Let's go in reverse order. So 6 schools got 1 vote. Those schools are Creighton, Duke, Kansas, Tennessee, UCLA, and Virginia. 2 schools got 2 votes. That's Arkansas and Baylor. 1 school got 5. It's Kentucky. And then we get into this big 3, and where I think you'll get 2 of these off the top of your head. The third one you might need to think a little bit more. It's a little bit not off the beaten path, but not from a Power 5 conference. If you're a big college basketball fan, you know this team has been really strong the past couple of years, and you can maybe get it. So let's continue to take these in reverse order. But again, I think the third team isn't going to be who you thought. You ready? Number 3 with 20 votes, 20%, Gonzaga. Boy, I thought Gonzaga would be 1 or 2 on this list. They're coming in at 3rd, because number 2 on this list with 28 votes, 28%, the Houston Cougars from the AAC. Wow. And then number 1, if you're paying attention, who hasn't Isaac said, you know it, at 37%, 37 votes, say it with me, the North Carolina Tar Heels come in as the team most voted by these Candid coaches as who they think will cut down the nets in Houston this season. So what does this all tell me? What do I see when I look at this? Well, clearly Carolina is the favorite, but there's no real consensus. Coaches feel good about all 3 of those top teams, Gonzaga, Carolina, and Houston. But here's the thing for me. Houston's going to be a phenomenal basketball team. They get Marcus Sasser back from injury, several others back, some newcomers. They're going to be a great basketball team. I don't think they belong in this top 3. There is a team that was just outside of that top 3 that I would move up into it in their place, and that's Kentucky. Kentucky gets back the reigning National Player of the Year, Oscar Tshiebwe. Xavier Wheeler's coming back, one of their really strong guards. They got a great class coming in. Watch out for Kentucky this year, folks. They could be really good. Baylor's going to be right there. I already talked about them on this show. They lose several guys, but they bring several back and obviously some new as well. And so watch out for Baylor. But interestingly, the betting markets disagree with me. The betting markets have Houston and Gonzaga tied as the two favorites to win the national championship. Disagree with that. Gonzaga, I think they absolutely can and will have a great shot at it, as they often have. But there we go. Let me just say a couple words about some of the other teams on this list that received at least one vote. Kansas got a vote. That is purely Bill Self. When you look at this roster, it's not a national championship roster. This is a Bill Self vote is what that is. Now, you heard Duke on the list. To me, Duke should not be getting a vote in this list. It's another extremely young team that yes, they're going to win a lot of games because they're extremely talented, but they're young. And when it comes to winning time, to championship time, they don't have enough of the mixture of returners to go with those young guys to make it go. Duke shouldn't be getting a vote. And in fact, I don't think Virginia should be on this list either. They will be better than they were last year. They got one vote here, but not national championship contender better than last year. They just don't have the offense. And by the way, it's still Kihei Clark running the offense. He's back for a fifth season. He was a freshman on the national championship team in 2018-19, and he's still around in Charlottesville. Crazy. But here's what I will say. Give me Virginia second in the ACC over Duke. Top three in the ACC for me this year is going to be Carolina, Virginia, then the Duke Blue Devils. They just they're not going to have enough consistency with those young guys to finish top two in the league. I think that'll be Virginia. They're going to do enough under Tony Bennett. Tony Bennett knows what he's doing all the time. Now, in the article where CBS lays this out, they give some quotes germane to each of the schools. And so let me read to you the two quotes about North Carolina. Number one, their returning core gives them an edge over the other teams in my mind. I also think that the addition of Paige Nance and the continued development of Puff Johnson will help them. One of the freshmen, Tyler Nickel, is an absolute monster and could make a difference this year as well. Right with you about Pete, right with you about Puff. As we said earlier, Tyler's going to have his moments. I think that, unfortunately, is a little overstated for this year about Tyler. He is going to get there. As we've said, the offense, the dude is a walking bucket. He'll tell you himself, and I love it. But I think his defense is going to be too much of a liability to let him see monster level in terms of this year. He's going to have some games, but it's not going to be the level of consistency. But Carolina's going to need him. Here's the second quote about the Tar Heels. I was so impressed at how Hubert Davis stuck to his coaching roots, but was also willing to adjust and adapt to his personnel by playing outside the, quote, Carolina system that had been so successful for decades. They bring back and have added all the pieces needed to replicate their run from last March. Brady Manek was such an offensive threat and will be tough to replace, but I have no doubt Hubert will learn quickly how this team can be more dangerous. This coach gets it to me. People all across the country, even in the Carolina family, are severely underestimating what Carolina is going to have to replace with Brady Manek. It's a lot. Yes, bring back the other four starters. But when you're losing a guy who hit the second most threes in a single season in Carolina history, man, you just can't replicate that. And Paige Nance isn't going to. However, as this Candid coach said, I trust Hubert Davis, though. He has already in his first year shown a willingness to figure out how to make the pieces fit with what he's got and do things. It might take a couple weeks, maybe even a couple months, but he's going to get there. Trust in that. Man, it's going to be a great year. Clearly, people around the country see what Carolina's got. But for today, that's it for this episode of Locked on Tar Heels. Coming up tomorrow, Pat Kilby and I finish off our summer roster preview by talking about who else but the Biscuit Boys. That is right. Can't wait for that. Really appreciate you making the show your first listen or watch today. Please don't forget to subscribe, smash the like button, comment. You can follow the show on Twitter at Locked on Heels. You can follow me on Twitter at Isaac Shade. Get more on the ACC by making Locked on ACC your second listen today. Host Candace Cooper and the local experts of Locked On take you around the conference in 30 minutes, 5 days a week. It's been great to be together today. Thanks again to all you new folks who are tuning in. And I want to remind all of you that it is a great day to be a Tar Heel. Until tomorrow, peace.